Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Scale Up webinars. We have the third in the series of Azure Cognitive Services um, today, and the topic that we are going to have is expanding your customer reach by leveraging machine translation. As you know, machine translation is one of the cognitive services, and we have Michelle Niethammer who is going to give the talk today. So I'll quickly talk about about the topic and introduce Michelle. So in this webinar, we will know about Azure Machine Translation that can enable translation of speech, text, and documents. Translator is a cloud-based neural machine translation service, which, as I said, is a part of Azure Cognitive Services family of REST APIs. The translator can be used with any operating system and powers many Microsoft products and services used by thousands of businesses worldwide, perform language translation and other language related operations. Right? So it's very well vetted. We'll also learn to take advantage of Azure Machine Translation to translate speech, text, and documents, enabling your business to expand your reach. Right. So we've had a lot of startups ask about this, and the language supports will be covering all of that. A little bit about the speaker. Michelle Niethammer is the Principal Program Manager in the Cognitive Services Strategy and Commercialization team, responsible for machine translation. In her role, she works with companies to integrate machine translation into their businesses and gathers feedback from customers and partners to help improve Azure Machine Translation. And she's worked at Microsoft more than 20 years, right? So she's a veteran and she's interacted with customers. So all of your questions, while we go to the webinar, you can ask your questions in the chat, and we'll be answering as they go. I'll be answering as they go, and Michelle will also be answering those questions as we go along. So keep your questions coming, and yeah, we look forward to your questions and interacting with you. So with that, over to you, Michelle. Looking forward to learning more about machine translation.
Thanks so much for that introduction. Super excited to be here tonight to talk to you all about machine translation and how it can really help extend the customer reach for your business. I think it's important to think through what are the business challenges that companies face when they're trying to do business in a global marketplace, right? More and more cultures and nations are interconnected, and we're really operating in a borderless environment. So when you think about these business challenges, how do I reach all my customers in their preferred languages? There are ways in which people communicate that they feel most comfortable, and they want to be able to interact in these settings in their preferred language. Secondly, are all my documents localized, making it very easy for me to do business in different countries? And finally, I think it's important to remember that not everyone has the same level of fluency in all languages. So even though I may speak another language, I may not have a deep level of understanding similar to what a native speaker would have. Now let's look at these business challenges and how they apply to some real-world scenarios that companies are facing. First off is user-generated content. So if you're running an online retail store and customers are posting reviews of products, it's really important that those reviews are translated in all languages. This enables customers of your business to be able to get feedback from everybody who's bought the product. And if most of the reviews are in a language that they don't understand, they may not feel comfortable buying your product. But if they can translate those reviews so they can understand it, all of a sudden now you're going to start to see more traction for sales, because people can get feedback from the entire community versus just those customers who might have replied in the same language that they speak. Likewise, if you think about social media responsiveness, many businesses have social media channels where they're getting feedback from their customers. And if you can't understand what your customers are saying about your business, this could result in bad PR for you, right? It's also a great opportunity, again, to create that broader reach through social media channels in native languages to expand your audience. If you think about the importance of localized customer collateral, one scenario this comes to play in is in the hotel setting. So imagine you're checking into a hotel and maybe the front desk clerk is able to speak in the language that you speak, but they handing you a paper to sign that's in a complete foreign language and you don't know what it says, right? Having that content translated really creates a delightful and inclusive experience for all of your customers. One of the challenges I hear very frequently from companies that I talk to is they need to be able to train a global workforce. And how do they provide that training in localized content so that everyone can understand? And this starts at your frontline worker and goes all the way up to the management teams where, again, people are hiring across the globe, and they need to ensure every employee has a common understanding of what that employee training looks like. Now, these are just a few of the scenarios. There's other scenarios here that are applicable in the business setting. If you think about customer support and internal communications, business intelligence, all of these are scenarios where translation can play a valuable role in your business. And as we go through the presentation today, I encourage you to think about the challenges that your business faces and how you can apply translation to extend your reach and create a more inclusive environment for your customers and your employees. So to solve these business challenges, we're going to talk through how we can leverage text translation, document translation, as well as speech translation to solve each of these business challenges. I think it's important to talk about the machine translation value drivers. Localization is something that's been around for years and years and years, and people have localized content leveraging human interpreters and translators to publish that content. But with the speed of innovation that's occurring in industries today, it's really difficult for humans to keep up not only with the volume, but the pace at which content is changing, right? And having that content available in a moment's notice is super important. And lastly, human translation is cost prohibitive to really do at the type of scale that many companies are looking for to increase that global reach. So by leveraging machine translation, you can do the bulk of the translation via Azure, and then leverage the human for those high value activities where they need to do a final editing pass on the content before it's published. And this allows you to really increase your throughput and the productivity gains, really enabling the best tool for the job, as it were. Let the machine do the heavy lift and then make the human more efficient to do the final pass. Now, if you've used any Microsoft products, you have experienced our translator products in action. You can see the translation capabilities inside of Bing, Office, SharePoint, Teams, Yammer, Visual Studio, Skype, Edge, and our Microsoft Translator app, as well as LinkedIn. So we power our first-party products. We learn from the work that we do with our first-party teams, and we improve our products so that when you integrate them into your business, you benefit from all of the work we've done on the first party. So let's take a look at where our machine translation capabilities sit within the overall Azure stack. So Azure is used by 95% of the Fortune 500 companies around the globe. And if you think about cognitive services, it's really a way to help companies unlock the value of the data that sits in Azure, allowing them to digitally transform business processes and create automation in a way that allows them to be much more efficient than they could without the cognitive services. We have customized AI models in decision, language, speech, vision, and web search. And we're going to drill into the language pillar today, which is where our machine translation capabilities sit. Now, inside the cognitive services language pillar, we have the immersive reader, and you may have seen this inside the Edge browser where you can read content aloud. We have language and understanding, which allows you to process spoken language or text and understand the intent and take the appropriate action. Q&A Maker is a way to create quick bots, knowledge-based bots based on content you already have available on your website. So many companies have FAQs and things like that, and Q&A Maker allows you to turn that into a bot, making the information much more easily accessible to your customers. Text analytics allows you to derive insights out of text-based content. And then lastly, Translator, where we're going to spend our time today. Now, before we drill into the capabilities, I think it's important to look at how far we've come in terms of our machine translation capabilities. Machine translation started out in the early 50s, what we call the pre-statistical era. And, those were early days when it was, the quality wasn't as good as it is today by any stretch of the means, but it was a huge advance in terms of what computers could do to translate content into a variety of languages. In the 90s, we moved into the statistical machine translation area, and this was a kind of a quantum leap in terms of the quality of translation. But there was still a lot of work to do and a lot of remaining problems to get to near human parity. And around 2016, we entered the area of neural machine translation. And these are huge massive multilingual language models that enable machine translation at a high quality, which will, through customization, you can get near human quality translation. So our Azure Cognitive Service Translator is composed of four features I want you to think of. First of all is our text translation capability, which allows you to translate strings of text in think near real time. So this is the API you want to call if you're doing, let's say, those product review translations on the fly, where you have a translate now button and you want to get that content translated. You'll get a near real-time translation with our text translation. Document translation is our batch translation process. And document translation is something we released last year at Build, and it's a really exciting API. It enables a couple of things. First of all, you can translate richly formatted documents, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc., into one or more languages in a single pass and retain all of the formatting that was in the original document, and it will show up in the output of those translated content. So, really a big advancement in streamlining translating content. The other thing the document translation API enables is translation of really large files. So if you have a business that is translating 10, 20 billion characters a month, and you need to translate large volumes of data, you want to use the document translation service to do that, because we don't have the character limits on document translation that we do on text translation. And again, think about text translation near real time, document translation, batch processing. Our speech translation capability allows you to translate speech in a single pass and translate that audio in combination with our speech services to be able to do multilingual conversations. And lastly, you can customize the translation capabilities by building custom language models specific to your industry domain or technology. And I want you to think of this as fine-tuning the translation so that it's really targeted to your specific use case. Our general language models are really good, but by applying this fine-tuning, you're going to get even better translations. Now, we make these APIs available through our Translator REST API, or this functionality, excuse me, our SDK, as well as in containers. So depending on the right solution for your business, you have a variety of different ways that you can deploy the technology. Now, our Translator service is available worldwide. It's available in each of the data centers you see here, as well as the government data centers. We support over 100 languages for our machine translation capabilities, and we're continually refining and improving the translation capabilities of each of these languages that we've released. as well as working with partners around the globe to gather new content where we can add new languages to our services. So let's drill into our Translator REST API capabilities for text translation. So you can translate text into one or more language in a single request to the service. And then when you use this in conjunction with our speech service, you can translate speech. You can apply a custom language model. If you're translating text and you don't know the source language that you're coming from, you can detect the language as part of that request. So you can understand the content. Is the text I'm looking at, is it in German or French or etc. Transliteration is the ability to convert words and sentences from one script to another. So you'll see how this works if you wanted to take the Japanese phrase sayonara and translate that so that it could be read by an English speaker, translated to Latin script. That's what transliteration is. And then we have the capability to look up terms in a dictionary, and we'll show you that as well. So I'm going to walk you through real quick here what some of the code would look like to call some of these functions. So in this request, I want to translate two phrases, hello, what is your name, and I am fine, thank you, into German. So you can see the code on the left side of the screen here to submit that request, and on the right you can see the response, what the translation looks like in German. Now here's a request to get language detection for supported languages. And you can see here I passed the phrase in German, and I get a confidence score from our service that tells me with 92% confidence that this is a German phrase that was passed to the service. You see some other attempts there to match the target or the source language, but they have a much lower confidence score. So you know that, okay, yes, this was a German string that was submitted to the request. Here's an example of transliteration. So you can see the Japanese phrases here. I don't read Japanese, but once it's transliterated, then I can read that this is konnichiwa and sayonara. So let's take a look at what that looks like when you put it all together. So here, what we're doing is we want to translate hello world into French, German, and Chinese simplified. So in one request, I make the translations and then I transliterate that so that not only do I see it in Chinese, but I also see it transliterated. And finally, here is an example of the dictionary lookup. So if I was trying to figure out how to fly on an airplane versus the insect fly, and I wanted to figure that out in a different language, you could use the dictionary lookup to help your user figure out what the correct word is. Now, our speech translation SDK allows you to take audio input, automatically recognize the text, and we do what's called disfluency removal, where we remove duplicate phrases that somebody may speak, so we have a very clean string to translate. We run that through our machine translation service, and we provide the text translation of that spoken word. If you want to take that text and then turn it back into audio so somebody could hear the translation in another language, then you can use our text-to-speech service to do that. And so it's valuable in both scenarios are very valuable. People can keep up reading along on a conversation if they can see it in text, but it's important to remember that not everyone knows how to read. And it may be more beneficial for them to hear the translated content versus just being able to read it. Now, we've made some really interesting improvements in cross-lingual adaptation for our speech models. And what this is the ability to take a neural voice and have it provide the proper accent when it's played back in any language that you want to. So when you combined our neural voices in your speech to text to speech translation loop, you're going to have audio that sounds like a native speaker was speaking. And so I want you to just hear what this sounds like, because it's really impressive. So I'm going to play some audio strings here. We have a neural voice named Jenny, and what I'm going to do is play her voice in a variety of different languages. And I want you to hear, as I play each of these, you'll see the tone of Jenny's voice remains the same, but you will hear Jenny speak with a native accent in each of these languages.
We look forward to working with you.
So that's Jenny in English. Here's Jenny speaking German.
Wir freuen uns auf die Zusammenarbeit mit Ihnen.
In Australian.
We look forward to working with you.
Canadian.
We look forward to working with you.
Great Britain.
We look forward to working with you.
I think this one is
Esperamos
Spanish.
trabajar con usted.
Spanish Mexican.
Esperamos trabajar con usted.
French Canadian.
Nous avons hâte de travailler avec vous.
French.
Nous avons hâte de travailler avec vous.
Italian. Whoops, I clicked the wrong button.
Non vediamo l'ora di lavorare con voi.
And Japanese.
私たちはあなたと一緒に働くことを楽しみにしています。
Korean.
우리는 당신과 함께 협정하는 것을 기대합니다.
This is Portuguese, Brazil.
Será prazer trabalhar com você.
And Chinese.
我们期待与您合作。
So I love doing that demo because it's so impressive to hear how we can generate audio that is exactly like a native speaker would sound. So here's the request in the code if you wanted to take do speech translation, turn it into text, and then take that speech, that text, and turn it back into speech. So you can see the full loop here in the code that it would take to do that. Are there any questions before I keep going? All right.
Yeah, you can keep going. Yeah.
Okay. So next, let's talk about custom translator and building a custom language model. So the advantage of the solution that we have is you don't have to start from scratch when building custom language models. You can start from our pre-trained models and adapt them to your data. Doesn't require any code to do this. You can do it through our online portal, and we have very low data requirements to start building a customized model. You can start with as few as 10,000 uniquely aligned parallel sentences. Obviously, more data, we will build more comprehensive models. So if you have more data, you absolutely want to leverage it. But if you're just getting started out, 10,000 unique aligned sentences is going to get you a good customized model. If you don't have data, it's not an issue. You can use a dictionary to get started, where you put in common terms and their translations, so that so when you call the API, it knows how to do those translations. So here's what it looks like to upload content to the language portal. So we support all of the popular document formats, so you can have your content in any format that works for you. You upload your data to the portal, you run training, and then once your model is trained, you want to test that model and validate that the model is giving you the translation that you're looking for. And you can see here that when you use our standard model, if you have this German phrase which says, which should be translated, "Let go of the sheet before you go upwind," it's a sailing term. you can see that it didn't get translated correctly without having sailing terms applied. So once we built a model with sailing terms, then we're getting the correct translation. So once you can see that your model is performing correctly based on your test data, then you go ahead and deploy the model and you leverage that model when you run your translation requests. Now our custom translator really helps improve the overall quality of language translation or machine translation for a specific industry or use case. When we see standard translation, leveraging our standard translation models, we get against a test set, we get a blue score, which is used to rate the quality of translation or accuracy of translation for a given scenario. We get a blue score somewhere between 20 and 30. By applying custom language models, we get a 10 or more point improvement in that translation. And you can see that you can get 30 to 65 in terms of the score. Now, a human performs somewhere between 50 and 75. And that range of human translation capabilities really is based on that person's expertise in a given domain. And not everybody is an expert in a subject matter expert in every industry, so they may not know the correct words or how to translate something. So you can see by applying these custom models, you can get to near human level translation. And then, of course, if you're publishing content and other things, the human can do a quick review and publish that content. Now, one of the unique things we have in Azure is a multi-device conversation service, and it enables you to see, speak, hear, and write in multiple languages on multiple devices. This is really a cloud orchestrator to orchestrate a conversation across a variety of devices. And we see people using this in education settings, training settings, where people can connect on their phone and then either speak or chat in their language and read or hear the content coming from other people that gets posted to the conversation. And there's a link here where you can see what that looks like. So I encourage you to take a look at that. It's really simple to use. If you've used our Microsoft Translator app, you can do this inside the Microsoft Translator app. To kick off a multi-device conversation, you simply click on the two-person icon to start a conversation. You can either join an existing conversation by entering a QR code or start your own conversation. And then you select your language and you're up and running in the conversation. So all of you, I encourage you to go try this out, and you can see and experience real-time conversation translation inside this app as well as text translation. Next, I want to talk to you about our document translation service. So as I mentioned before, it enables the translation of volumes of documents that are either rich in content or very large in size. And we support all of the popular file formats, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, PDF, HTML. And you may think to yourself, well, I've used translation inside Word, what's different here, right? And there's a couple things I want you to think about. If you're translating documents inside Word, you're using our standard language models. So you don't have the capability to add custom language models to that translation. The other thing, if you have a large number of documents that you need to translate, you would have to do file save as multiple times to get all those translations taken care of. But by using our batch translation service, you can automate the process and streamline that. You can also apply custom documents here as well too. And again, don't think about document translation as just rich formatted document translation. Think about translating really large volumes of content that need to be translated. If you have a business where you're doing a lot of e-discovery type work, where you're ingesting a lot of content from a lot of different sources and all of that needs to be translated, leveraging our document translation service to translate that text and enable it inside your application is a great way to get that stuff processed. So let's take a look at what document translation looks like. So here's a source document, and you can see it's in English. You run it through the document translation service, and there it is, all translated. And you can see that all of the formatting was retained. So we have columns, we have tables, we have bold, underline, etc. Highlights, different colored fonts, all of that rich formatting was retained in the translation. And I'm going to show you a demo of how this works, and an application we have on GitHub that each of you can download so you can get started with document translation. So why use Translator? Well, it's a proven technology that's very customizable. It's available at scale. It's super cost effective and highly secure. And I think there's a lot of applications in every business where you can apply this technology to help you expand and reach with your customers and your employees. I've got in the next couple of slides just give you an overview of our pricing. So we have pricing for our text translation, our document translation, as well as our speech translation pricing. And so when you think about pricing, I want you to think about a couple of things. If you're translating text, that's one pricing model. If you're translating documents, that's a different pricing model. And then if you want to use custom models for either one of those, there's a different pricing model for that. All of our text or document translation pricing is based on the character. And so based on the characters you process through the service, that's what you're charged. Our speech translation pricing is priced a little bit different. It's priced by the audio hour. So if you have a mix of translation needs where you're translating speech, text, and documents, you're gonna have different Azure subscriptions for each of those services, and you'll be charged at a different rate. So if you have questions on pricing, your account team can certainly help you with that. And I think as you understand the scenario, you'll be able to figure out the pricing pretty quickly. It's important we talk about privacy, security, and compliance. So we have a no trace policy on our website. So no customer content is written to persistent storage. All of the content is resides inside your Azure tenant and is absolutely private. And the data also resides inside each of the regional data centers. So when you configure your Azure subscription, you say where you want it to run. And we have regulatory compliance for a variety of regulatory bodies, GDPR, HIPAA, ISO, just to mention a few. So we certainly take privacy, security, and compliance important, and value the protecting your data. So we've got a variety of resources here that you can learn more information. So I encourage you to check that out. And that's the end of the formal presentation. I do want to give you a demo now of our document translation service and show you what that looks like. And also in the presentation here, I've got Translator API limits. So if you were wondering what the limits are in the API, you can see that as well. So let's flip over to our document translation app. Now this app is available on GitHub, and I encourage you to all, we'll make sure we've got the link to it, encourage you to all go and download it and give it a try. It enables you to do a couple things. One, you can see our text translation service, and you can use our text translation service, see it in action, and you can also translate documents through this. So once you get the app installed, the first thing you need to do is set up your Azure subscription. And you can either do that through a key vault or putting your subscription key in. Now, once you get that set up, you'll want to test it and make sure that it's working correctly. And once you've got everything set up and working, then you can start running through some translations. So, here's an example of a text string. We're going to be working through with zones 2 and 5 today through perceived execution queues. And so that's a relatively technical term, but we're going to go ahead and translate that. So Let's say I want to translate this into German. I can hit the translate button and there's the translation. And as quick as that was translated, that's near real time, right? So I'm just going to say, hello, happy to be here this evening. And let's translate that to Italian. So you can see it's super quick if you're passing strings in to get translated. You're getting that near real-time response. Next up, I want to show you translating documents. So I have that demo document that I showed you in the presentation here for translation. I've selected that to be translated, and I've got the output directory. And I'm going to translate this into French. I could do French Canadian, I'll do French. So I hit the translate button, and you'll see that the document is getting uploaded to Azure. And then it's going to be queued up for translation, and now it's running and it's being translated. And that process is going to take a second here to run, and then it's going to give me the output. So if I flip over here, let's wait till that's finished. There, we're done. So here's the document in English on the right, and here it is on French on the left. So you can see processes really quickly, and all the formatting's retained. I could have translated multiple documents in this one pass if I wanted to. So I could have selected multiple languages and run the translation, and they all would have been processed in the same request. So, you know, I can run this again, and it's going to now process and translate in multiple languages. So I encourage you to all download the app off of GitHub, give it a try. It's available via open source, so you can take that and integrate it into some application that you're building as well. You can deploy it as is and get started with document translation inside your company or text translation. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Great, I think fantastic presentation because it covered a lot of ground in terms of different aspects of the service, whether it's like deployment or usage, whether it's speech, document translation, or integrating it in various respects. So there are a few questions, and I have a couple of questions from the startups that I interacted with as well. So let's quickly go to the questions. I think Alan is asking which Indic languages are available currently. Michelle, you had a slide with all of the languages, right? So if you can just put on that slide. And again, Alan, we have also posted a link, where it shows what are the different languages that are supported. So off the top of my head, after reading that page, I know that Gujarati, Kannada, Hindi, Bengali are supported, and there are a few more as well. So currently, I think the count stands at 102 different languages that support. And again, as Michelle said, that there are multiple services. So it actually has a matrix where you can see what are the services that are supported, for each language. So there is slightly varying support for each language. So you can see the matrix and, get an idea. Yeah. Michelle, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is there's different languages for speech capabilities versus text. So you might want to check that. But we have for all the primary languages, we've got really good coverage. So I think you're going to be pleased with our overall language coverage.
Cool.
Here, I get that slide back up. Sorry, I thought I'd already started sharing. There you go. There's all our languages.
We can't see the slide yet, Michelle. Are you sharing your screen?
It's visible.
Yeah, visible.
It
It's
thinks,
visible.
Yeah.
It's visible.
Yeah.
It thinks I'm sharing.
Yeah. Now we can see it. Yeah.
Okay.
It took a second, to do that. Yeah. So I think, yeah. So I can see that Assamese, Bangla, Gujarati, Hindi, Kannada. I think all of these are like Indic languages that are supported. Yeah. Malayalam as well. Malayalam, Marathi, Nepali, Odia. Yeah. So Punjabi, Tamil, yeah. So yeah, there are quite a few languages, Urdu as well. Yeah, so that are supported from the Indic languages. So yeah, so that should answer your question, Alan. So I'll quickly take the next question. So uh, Nick is asking, are there any work groups at Microsoft or in the Philippines where we could combine forces to enhance the currently low quality of Filipino languages? We have currently 110 million Filipinos and need to reach for our education program, especially for those who do not speak English.
Yeah, so I'm not aware of any, but that doesn't mean there aren't any. But we're always looking to improve our languages. So if you have ideas on how we could do that, I'd love to connect with the people on the team who are working on that and see what the opportunity looks like and how we could do that.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'll connect with you on LinkedIn. Thank you, Paul.
Sounds great.
Cool. And Michelle, you did a demo of the app, the document translation app. Can you share the GitHub link to that as well in the chat?
Yeah. Let me pull that up while you're going through the rest of the questions here. I'll get that in the chat.
Yeah, I think a few people have over the years found it very funny that we support Klingon as well. Yeah. Yeah, so I think someone very geeky inside Microsoft has added support for Klingon as well. Cool. So
Yeah,
I have a couple of sorry.
gotta
Go
have Klingon. Gotta have Klingon.
on. Cool. So I had a couple of questions. Just give me a second while I pull it up. Yeah, so I think Michelle, something that you covered in your presentation, but something that is not very obvious for startups that use cognitive services is you can actually deploy this in a container, right? Which is because many of the startups we do speak to also have on-prem solutions or they sell to the government, which have stringent requirements on what data can come in and what data can go out. So do you mind talking a little bit about how we can deploy it on the container as well?
Yeah, so we have connected containers as well as disconnected containers, and all the functionality you see can be deployed in a container. If you want a disconnected container, then that's a kind of a gated process, and we're really targeting governments who need that disconnected feature for their use case. So you have to get special approval if you want disconnected containers. But the connected containers allow you to do the processing local at your your data center or wherever you're doing your hosting, and then connect to the cloud just basically to report your usage.
Cool. Yeah, and one more thing I wanted to kind of uh, also point out that because cognitive services is part of Azure, many of the startups that are listening in, you will have access to Azure credits as well. So you can use your credits to actually experiment with the various services. In addition to the free limits that you have, so if you want to kind of make it a part of your flow, Azure credits would cover them, right? And the other important aspect, which again I want to emphasize, is on the security aspect that none of your data is stored on our servers. We take security and compliance very, very strictly. So you can rest assured, unlike some of the other consumer services that might store your data or use your data for enhancing the services, Microsoft does not do that, and we've explicitly talked about it. Another question I also kind of get often is what document formats can you translate? obviously I think Word, because we did a demo, but what about like PDF and other formats as well?
Yeah, they're all supported. PDF. Let me pull that back up so you can. Got to jump forward here a little bit. But we support all of the document formats, and if your business has a format that we don't support, and you've got a specific use case, let us know, because we are adding formats. But so Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, PDF, ODF, HTML5. I mean, there's just text, CSV. We've got, I think all of the popular use cases that we've heard of and gotten feedback on, we support.
Cool. That's great. So that is all the questions that we had. I'm just going through the chat once again to make sure that we have answered all of the questions. But if there are any further questions, or if you are watching this on the YouTube channel, please feel free to reach out to your team, and we'll be very happy to connect you to the product group that works on this. And always looking forward to integrating in more different ways, integrating and increasing support across languages. So if you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to the team.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I really appreciate everybody joining tonight and learning more about our translation capabilities in Azure.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks everyone, and we'll look forward to the next Scale Up webinar, which we'll have next week. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining, and hope you enjoyed the content.
Thanks, everybody.